Alhamdulillah. I'm sorry, guys. We had a bit of a technical issue, but we're back. And please feel free to leave any of your comments or questions in the comment section, and inshallah we'll get it addressed by our speakers. But please continue about last Ramadan.
Yeah, so last Ramadan we wanted to teach them the joy of Ramadan, the wonder, the magic of Ramadan. So we got children to get really involved in decorating Qaswa for Ramadan with lights and lanterns and artwork and all sorts of things. And then we encouraged them to be really charitable.
Yep.
We had competitions going on between factions about how they could raise the most money for
community food
hamper. And we packed all the food boxes together and we counted, and the faction one, the families were just so generous.
Bringing, yeah.
And I think the children really learned about, it's not just about them, but it's about the whole ummah, and it's about also the community they're living in, which I think is something really important to teach children about, because oftentimes children in our part of the world have been always blessed.
Yeah, and I think we also wanted for the longest of time since we came to Perth, we wanted a Taraweeh place where it was child friendly. So we made sure that we have children activities while the parents were doing their Taraweeh. The children were learning seerah, doing art and craft, coloring. They painted that room. One of our rooms was a product of the children artwork in the month of Ramadan. So the parents get to pray in peace, and the children also get to join together. They pray Isha together, and after that, children under, what was it? 7 children under 7. They're not required to pray Taraweeh. They adjourn to another room and have fun. But this year, things change. Yeah, we can't do all those things, but we still wanted to make sure that the spirit of Ramadan lives on. And
yeah, because quite a few children who've been with us last year were quite disappointed that they couldn't come to join us this Ramadan, and they were going, oh, we couldn't come to Qaswa, it's not going to be fun anymore. So we realized that it's important to keep them connected for Ramadan. Yeah, so we came up, so we've got the adults session going on.
Yeah, every day we've got, like last year we had a theme, the study of Surah Al-Baqarah. So this year the theme is the study of Surah Al-Kahf. And we make sure that our Taraweeh, at least the Taraweeh is short enough that kids can follow. We don't do one juz, and nothing against those who do one juz. I think we just offer an alternative for families. It's difficult if you bring a kid and expect them to stand for 1.5 hours and listen to someone reciting Quran where they don't understand. So what we did was, before Taraweeh, we will study what the ayat that we're going to recite in Taraweeh, and we read only that. So our Taraweeh is probably about 20 minutes, something that a 7-year-old and 8-year-old could follow. So we do the same this year, but it's just shorter Surah Al-Kahf, and we study. Yeah, we go on Zoom and we study a few ayats every day, and then we recite that ayah together. And one thing, I think it's a hidden blessing. This year we managed to get even Sakina, who's 5-year-old, our daughter, to join us in Taraweeh, which we don't think it would happen if we had it in Qaswa, because she would want to play with her friends. Now, because my sister's praying, Sumaya is 10, so she's praying, so I'll pray along. We just make sure that our Taraweeh gets even shorter than what it was last year. But she gets to join the fun, and she's proud of the fact that I prayed 8 rak'ahs. And yeah, we keep on praising her for that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think for children, it's really quite important to check in terms of how they are feeling. Sometimes we just think about how adults are missing out on the Taraweeh. But actually, there's a huge social element for children during Ramadan, particularly the kids that I've been interacting with for the past years, where when we make Ramadan so special and so interesting to them, when they come to the masjid, that's they get to stay up a bit late. It's really quite an important aspect. So keeping that special at home is quite important. So this would look like decorating your house, having a little bit of a Ramadan spot, and then encouraging them to read the Sirah. You can read, you can pick a theme and read with them. You can do crafts and things that is related to Ramadan. And there's so many resources online that are free, or books that you could buy, or things that you could subscribe to online that cater for children. And for this term, because we couldn't go and do all our charities like how we usually do, we changed it and tweaked it to still want children to feel that they are contributing and doing something good for other people, for the Ummah. We came up with this kindness challenge as part of their work. So what they would have to do for this is that they've got a series. We prepared a series of cards that has got little bits of kindness. So probably one card would say, do a chore for someone without them knowing. Another one would be, say hello to your neighbor. Smile when you feel like scowling, donate a toy. So all these little bits of acts of kindness, there's about 80 or 90 for them to choose from. And they would get, and parents will pledge an amount for every act that they do.
So each card, so each act is on a card, and each card will have a point. So the easier ones, you get 1 star. The difficult ones, you get 3 stars. And parents pledge each star, how much are they going to donate? So it can be as low as 10 cents, maybe if they're generous, $1 or $2 per star that the child gets.
Yeah, so the child feels that they are earning that donation for the charity. And we've been seeing that children getting really quite excited. And
very competitive. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been very competitive on trying to do good, which is really quite beautiful to see, because like they are racing for goodness. And part of the blessing of the pandemic, I think, is for families to be together, and families and parents to show themselves being a role model. They've got more time for that in some sense, to do that. And what better way for a child to learn through that role modeling of their parents itself?
I think the card where you greet your neighbor, and we do, because we do it at home, so we see sometimes our daughters just looking outside the window, checking if the neighbors are out, and then they just rush out and the neighbor, hi Uncle Phil, are you alright? Yeah. So I think children get excited doing small acts of kindness. But I think those small acts are very important because it builds your character, and they compete with each other to set the table for iftar. Pretty much we don't have to do much of that part, and they because
they wash the dishes.
They wash the dishes.
That's really nice.
That's amazing.
Yes, so they feel that they're achieving something, and I think that's really quite important when you talk about it psychologically, because you put the sense of control within the child. So the child feels that there are some things I can control, and there's some things within my range of things that I'm able to do. So there are a lot of things that I cannot do anymore because of the restrictions. I can't go to the park, I can't go to all my after school activities, I can't come to madrasa, I can't go and play at my friend's house. But having these things that they can actively choose to do, and it's doable for them, they can look at a range and, oh, I can do this, I can plan for this. It gives that huge sense of control and confidence, and I think it just lifts their mood up a bit. And I think it's really quite important to monitor that emotional state of children.
Yeah, so we do that not just with our family, but also with the extended Qaswa family. So we share it with all our students, and when we meet on Saturday, we've got our madrasa goes still going on just on Zoom. So when we meet them on Zoom, we'll discuss what are the acts of kindness that you have been doing, what are your favorite, and what are you going to do next. And we see that those who are doing it, they're very excited, especially because there's monetary value. Although they don't get that money at the end, it's donated, but they feel that they have accomplished. It's not just them taking money from parents and donating it. They're doing something to earn the money to donate. So they feel like I am the one that is actually donating, which I think that's beautiful. And to make it more interesting, parents also join in. She is competing with our daughters. So I'm the
Well
one paying.
done.
Every star is how many cents? 20 cents. I think
Yeah.
20 cents per star. So they tally and I'll just pay out every 10 days. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I remember last year when, the kids did the challenge for community food hamper. And it was exactly what you're talking about, is that competition for goodness and that race for rewards. They were so excited, every single time they brought something towards the community food hamper project, and the day that they got to pack it. And I think that's something that's really important. Sometimes giving money can be really easy. You don't really feel the pinch. It's like, oh, here's the money, and then it just disappears. But I think the fact that the kids could be involved and had to actively go out and find a way to actually bring in the donations to it, they got to be a part of actually packing it, and each faction had to work out, how many did they pack, and then how many we packed together.
Yeah.
It's really important. And I'm just picking up on something that you had said in terms of that control, which I think is so important, to be able to have that control with other parts of your life that's really going crazy right now. And that's applicable for both like children and adults, and for all of us. It reminds me, we've got actually like a psychosocial support program in Palestine. And this has been going on for a while, where we actually have support structures for children. We've got things like story time, and really looking at how we can actually create a sense of normalcy in all the turmoil that's actually going on. And it's something that has been beautiful and has worked so well. But then with the global pandemic, that also changed, in that kids didn't have access to that. And very quickly, our partners on the ground and together, we were like, okay, we need to ensure that this continues for that stability. And we moved it just online, and it still continues. And so at a time when there's even more chaos added to an already, tumultuous situation, that really helps. So what you said really resonated in some of the programs that we're doing. So that's fantastic. How do parents recreate this at home? So we kind of have a Qaswa family that's established, but if it was just me and my kids at home, what are some of the things that I can actually do to still feel that, that Ramadan spirit, and create something like that in that space?
I think it's important to begin with before Ramadan. Now we're already into Ramadan, but it's not too late to start. Maybe if you haven't decorated your house, make sure that your house is decorated. Have some lights around, those lanterns, cards, Ramadan Kareem banners or anything. But make sure that your house, the space is decorated to keep the Ramadan spirit alive. I think reading Quran together with the children, not just reading, but also explaining the meaning behind it. And I think with children, we don't need to go into the big surahs. Maybe simple surahs like the three Quls, Qul Huwallahu Ahad, Qul A'udhu Birabbil Falaq, Qul A'udhu Birabbin Nas. Parents can just pick up a tafsir, or maybe watch some of the videos. I think Nu'man Ali Khan especially has a very special way of explaining in a very simple way. But instead of asking the children to watch those videos, parents watch those videos and explain it to the children. So it becomes a family activity rather than family watching Nu'man Ali Khan, a stranger, doing it. So from dad, mom, let's memorize Surah Al-Ikhlas. If you've got a 5-year-old or 3-year-old, memorize Surah Al-Ikhlas, and then tell them the significance behind that surah. And then make sure that you do your Jama'ah Salah. Just because you can't go to the masjid, after iftar, you pray Maghrib together, and then probably you do your Quran session after that, and then you pray your Isha together. Your children can take it, do your Taraweeh together. Make it short. Taraweeh doesn't need to be complicated and long. It can be, if your children are complaining, Al-Kafirun and Al-Ikhlas for 8 raka'ah, that's good enough. But at least the sense of normalcy that Ramadan has, those are the things that we usually do, and you can still do it. And if you've got boys who probably 10 years old, 11 years old, already know how to pray, give them the chance to lead. So instead of the father leading all 8 rak'ah of Taraweeh, the father leads Isha, and then Taraweeh, share it with the boys. Like, okay, you lead the first 2 rak'ah, the second one leads the second 2 rak'ah. And this is something that you will not get it outside of a pandemic. If you go to the masjid, there is no way a 10-year-old will be allowed to lead prayers. But this gives the children opportunity to lead prayers and builds that sense of confidence when they grow up. Yes, I know it's not that difficult to lead prayers, and they've got that chance.
Yeah, and I think making Ramadan special, and you think about, your good memories. It's always surrounded by also food and treats. And I would always tend to make sure that if the children are fasting, making it exciting for children who want to fast, making sure that there's something special for them for iftar, that their best memories of food at home or Ramadan has, a lot to do with something special that they've had. So I would tend in my household to be more generous on treats, for example, during Ramadan, just because I want them to associate feel good feeling, the happiness with Ramadan. And other things that we can always do is just skew your usual activities to Ramadan-based activities. So, for example, if you are if you are reading to your child every night before bed, instead of reading the usual stories by Dr. Seuss or whoever, just swap it to Islamic storybooks. And Alhamdulillah, we've been so blessed. I think that we've got so much good quality Islamic books by wonderful authors that we can always go for.
Beautiful illustrations.
Yeah, beautiful illustrations. And also, like if you're doing art and crafts or doing painting, just skew it to Ramadan. Paint a crescent moon. Make a collage of a masjid. Paint a lantern and put lights in it. So all those kind of things. Just think along, what do you do usually at home, and then skew it for Ramadan, and that would make the children feel that, oh yeah, it's something very special, something very different. And just as a tip of what I do, because I find it quite difficult to do big chunks of things in a short amount of time. I don't have much time for that. So what I do is I make sure that every year I add on to my Ramadan decorations. So I've got this Ramadan decoration from, let's say, year 2018 that I've kept carefully. And then I'll just take that out. And in 2019, I add a little bit more, and then so on and so forth. And in the end, you get quite a good selection in about 2 to 3 years.
So by 2030, our house will be smaller because the decorations are going to take more space.
It's okay.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to iftar, we're both not fans of making young children fast. So I think our eldest Sumaya started fasting only when she was 9. She was 9. We allowed her to fast. She wanted to fast earlier. We said no, you still need to eat, you need to drink. But to make sure that they join in the joy of iftar, we just tell them, all right, you fast. Not the first half of the day. We tell them to fast just probably 2 hours before iftar. Like last year, Sakina was 4, so she fasted from 4 o'clock to 5:30. That's about it. So 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we said, all right, cut off. You're fasting now. No water, no food. Well, she normally goes without food and water for that 1.5 hours because she's out playing. But because she's fasting, suddenly she realized that the consciousness, can I just have one sip of water? I said, no, you have to wait and join us for iftar. And she was like, all right, okay. And as it gets to 5:15, how much longer is it? How many more minutes? So that anticipation for iftar, and finally when the Maghrib adhan goes, you go, yes, I get to eat. And we make it a big thing, like, oh, you fasted today, and people are like, that's only 1.5 hours. Doesn't matter, but she fasted.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, so having them share that joy of iftar, I think is really important in the memories of the children. They really quite enjoy that, and there are a few things, I guess, that reminds them hugely in Ramadan. Like one thing for us is rose milk, like milk with some rose syrup, and I usually just do it during Ramadan, and then when they see that, there's some excitement.
Yeah, that connection. When you just talked about the memory of fasting, it kind of takes me back to my own childhood, where the connection between fasting and that not having food was really identifying with those people who were less fortunate. And I was born in South Africa, and so in many ways poverty was very much around us, and it was something that you could see, and you knew that you could identify with, you could make that connection. Sometimes I find that in Australia it is harder to be able to make that connection, And so how do we make that, I guess, make that connection for children living here where you can't necessarily see poverty as prevalent as you can in other countries, and so that they can have that same, I guess, identify with it and understand that.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that we have to consciously do as parents. One thing that we can show them is people who are homeless. So we do make it a point to actually show our children and talk about the homeless and them without a shelter. And when it was storming just a week ago, we really reminded the children, like, imagine if you don't have a house to live in, how are you going to survive this storm, and you don't have a shelter? How are you feeling? So that, I think, really resonated with them. And other things that I think is quite important, because we don't see it in front, is actually showing them videos. And I usually enjoy showing them the actual videos by MAA, so that they could actually see not only the suffering, but most importantly, they also see the helpers. And I think that's very important for children, because when they see a lot of the suffering, they, at the same time, they feel quite helpless and they feel very sad. But if we pair it with looking for the helpers as well, then it balances off that, okay, there are some things that I can do to help the helpers. Yeah.
I think you did that really well with KSA clips that Safiyyah actually makes. And I know last year we were going over to deliver aid in Lebanon and Jordan, and Safiyyah had made all of these clips and gifts for the kids. And, you know, the other kids at Qaswa got involved with that. And so, you know, they were involved in the process of making gifts for children overseas. And then we managed to take it and distribute it, and they got to see that. And I think that something like that is quite beautiful, and that is making those connections. And it's a good way to actually do that when they're involved actively in being part of the entire process. I think that can make a big difference also.
Yeah, I remember the children bringing in a packet of lollipops each for you to bring. Yeah,
that was for Tanzania last year. And that was really, really beautiful. Like they came in, and these are like little things that I think we can do. And even locally, there's things like that, you know, as parents, I guess we've got to take that initiative to find those things that our kids can be involved in, where they actually see the difference that they can make through charity. What about for teenagers? So I guess with younger kids, in some ways, it's easier. They'll do things like the kindness challenge. What happens with the teenagers who, you know, want to spend their time, you know, sleeping in Ramadan? How do you make that connection for them? You know, it is the month of giving. How do we get them a little bit more involved?
Caveat, we don't have teenagers yet. So
yep.
Check them in a few years' time.
Fair enough.
But I think with your Qaswa High,
with the Qaswa High, last year, they were excited. They wanted to join in the food hamper. But because we had a smaller class with the high school, we didn't join in. And we were planning to do the homeless run, but because it was winter, and Kamran is a homeless. Yeah, Kamran was saying it's not advisable to bring kids at because they go in their runs very early in the morning, and so we haven't managed to do that yet. But we see the excitement when they see the primary school students doing it. Even the high school students actually wanted to join in. We were thinking of doing something this Ramadan with them, but we couldn't do that. But I think if it's in this Ramadan, I'll leave it to you, because that's much more theoretical than practical.
Well, for teenagers, again, you've got to look at what is it that they would like to contribute, and what is it that they are able to contribute. A lot of the times we get confused between trying to control them because we think that they're still kids, or we tend to back away because of their moodiness, or them wanting to stay in the room and allow them. But actually, a lot of the teenagers do actually want to make a difference, but it has to be in their way. So thinking about along the lines of actually asking them, what do you think we could be doing? What would you like to do? And actually engaging them in a project, and most importantly, getting a few of them together, because teenagers tend to want to work together with people of the same age, and then giving them autonomy onto designing the plan, onto doing what they want to do. So they can do things not anonymously, they can do things secretly. Some of them would really prefer to just be low key and like, I'm just going to do this good thing, but I don't want to, tell the world about it. And because I think some of them are also worried about, the publicity of, how they might look like. So thinking along the lines of actually asking them what you would like to do. And if they say, oh, nothing really, I just want to stay in my room, they say like, okay, so staying in your room, then how would you divide your time between doing some things for Ramadan, that means with your Quran or with your tafsir, or reading some Islamic literature versus, just your usual things. So making them have that sense of control that I'm going to divide out of the 3 hours I've got free after school, I'm going to do 1 hour for Ramadan and the other 2 hours I'm going to do for my other things. So putting that decision for them, we just navigate, but we don't actually outline to them, oh, you've got to read Surah 1 to Surah 3, you've got to do this and this. So don't, I guess, nitpick or don't detail out exactly what they want to do. You give them a general idea.
Give them a structure.
Yeah.
But let them fill in details.
I had very selfishly asked that question because I had a mum who called me this morning saying her teenage son just spends all weekend, sleeping, and he's not doing anything this Ramadan and he can't get out. And so what can she get him involved in? And I was a bit stuck, to be honest. But then I remembered, MAA does a Ramadan raiser where you can actually fundraise, so like a social platform where you can reach out to people and fundraise and then choose it. And I said to her, listen, it's one thing I can think of. He can, send it out to his family, friends, and try and raise some money, and then maybe put it towards something like a water well, and you can explain Sadaqatul Jariyah, and, he'd then get that report with his name on it. And, it's challenging, but it's something that he can do. And she was like, that's it, I'll do it. But I think the point that you just made now in terms of, that autonomy is actually really important. And yeah, that's, I think, a really good
and I think
for parents.
It really work if there are 3 or 4 of them together. It's actually going to really work quite well, because then each other, there's kind of a bit more of a push together. Yeah.
And I think if I remember just reflecting on my childhood or growing up teenage years, me and my friends, I think it's important that the adults give some sense of responsibility to the teenagers. Like, you're responsible, let's say at home, you're responsible. If you want them to read Quran, then there must be an outcome. Like, okay, you're reading this, now you lead prayer for 2 rakah, you lead prayer for 4 rakah. That sense of responsibility makes you like, okay, I have to live up to this. It's not just me fooling around. There's something I have to do at the end of the day with my time.
Yeah, if they have younger siblings, putting that sense of control of them trying to do something for the younger siblings. Like, for example, you're in charge in helping your sister organize her room, for example, and then just leave it at that. So you don't tell them how to organize the room. So it's that teenage thinking of, oh, how am I going to do this? Yeah.
So I guess to wrap it up, Eid's coming up. What do we do? I mean, we're used to going to the mosque and for prayers and things like that. It's a place where everyone gathers and you really feel that sense of Eid. So how do we combat that? Is that as easy? What are we going to do?
Well, restrictions have been lifted to 20 people. So I'm not sure how we're going to do Eid prayer with 20 people. So maybe you can Eid prayers can be done at home. And what I'm planning to do is probably I'll release a structure of the Eid khutbah and leave it leave some empty slots for the parents to add in what they want to say to the family. So I think it's a good opportunity for dads, step up now, learn how to give khutbah. And after this, imams will be out of job, because every dad will say, hang on, I
can do this myself.
But I think that's something that you make sure that although it's just 20 people, so if you've got a smaller family, then you can probably have some friends come over and do your Eid takbir and then do your Eid salah together. I think that is very important. Keep the spirit alive. Although we can't do everything, but don't just chuck everything out. Just do whatever little that we can do in this Eid.
Yeah, and I think you will probably would have what I call stagger socializing. You just stagger it. So you can have 20 people for breakfast. You can have 20 people for lunch, 20 people for tea time, and 20 people for dinner, and that gets you 80 people. Alhamdulillah. So I think we've got to just think about creative ways around it, and just making sure we are staying connected. We can have takbir on Zoom, in the nights together. So for as long as I think people are seeing each other and they're having that face contact, whether or not it's through the screen or in person, I think that's good.
And I think it's important that children don't go to school on Eid day. I know some parents make their children go to school, or the children and the parents go to work. It's important that you take time off on that day. It's a special day. It's not fair for parents to tell the children, no, you can't celebrate Christmas, but then you're not doing anything during Eid. So you need to make that day a special day. Go buy, if you can afford it, buy some new clothes. Doesn't have to be expensive, but just something new shoes. Make that day special. I mean, we may not be going anywhere much, but it's just not really for to show people that we have new clothes, but it's excitement for the children that we're wearing something new today.
And keep all the have special food for adults and children alike during Eid, and in the last 10 days of Ramadan, just engaging children in the wonders of Laylatul Qadr and engaging adults in stuff. I think the pandemic, the blessing of it is that you have more time alone. And I think in the last 10 days, I think that's really wonderful. You can sort of have your own little iktikaf at home, having that private time with God, and make full advantage of it. We might not get it again.
Absolutely. Well, guys, Jazakallah khair for giving up your Sunday away from your kids to do this. That's fantastic. And I'm sure, a lot of people tune in and listen. There's some great advice there. Any last words?
I would like to wish, I guess, everybody wonderful last few days of Ramadan. Make the most out of it. When you get overwhelmed with, I guess, children, or when you feel that this is a bit too much, this pandemic is going on a bit too much, focus on just connection. Focus on your connection with God. Focus on your connection with your children and your family. Just drop everything else and just focus on more relationships.
I think this pandemic Ramadan, lockdown Ramadan, allows us to deep dive into the spirit of Ramadan, because Ramadan is all about consciousness of God, taqwa, which doesn't need to be in a masjid. Now you're bringing that sense, that the activities in the masjid at home, and I think that's a beautiful opportunity. Don't look at it as a bad thing. It's actually a golden opportunity that God has given us. Make full use of that, and use more your time to read and study more Quran, just because you have actually more time.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I was speaking to our chairperson just yesterday of MAA, and she was saying, for her, she's seen this as such a blessing. Her grandkids have been around so much more. There's so much of time for connection. And she was saying, there's 3 generations praying Taraweeh together, which ordinarily wouldn't have happened. And so there's so much of beauty in that. And I think we need to focus on that positives. But Jazakallah khair for being there and doing an amazing job in what you're actually doing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you both, inshallah, and continue to see Qaswa grow and grow from strength to strength, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.